Hi everybody. So I'm Rob from Bluprintx. I head up our solutions practice in EMEA. And today I'm going to take you through our framework based on the 4 pillars, but a lot of it's based on insight and topics that I think will resonate with you before we get on to exactly how we'd help. So today it's not just me. I've got Lee here, our group CEO, who's joining this session, and Lee's going to help out with some of the questions at the end. Hoping we'll have a bit of time for a bit of discussion. So there we go. So let's get going. So keen to move forward. So yes, as introduced, the role of the CMO has become harder again. So what's going on? I think there's 3 things happening that are materially harder or making things harder in 3 ways. So first of all, the commercial bar has moved. And what do I mean by that? I think today CMOs are expected to stand up in the same room as finance and justify spend in the language of not just revenue, but also margin contribution. Okay, you are in a room also competing and lobbying for investment with your peers. And that's making the role a lot more challenging. You're being asked, how can you improve revenue? How can you support margin contribution? But also, what are you going to stop? How are you going to sort right from right? And the conversation around prioritization is just getting a lot harder. The second thing that's happening is the operating context is much less forgiving today. The market cycle times are much shorter. There's much less appetite for multi-quarter experimentation of ideas, and the need to prove value early on is essential now. It's just got a lot harder. It's less about being strategic. It's kind of more about being provable in a CFO and CEO context. And the third is AI, right? AI is disrupting everything. It's moving from being from curiosity to capability. CMOs are now expected to have a view on how AI fits in across end-to-end operating model in the workplace, and not just marketing, but marketing, sales, and service. And this is a challenge because things are moving from experimentation into actual delivery. But delivery that's not pilots. It's real decision and execution, and in a safe way. So the other shift that we're seeing to build on this is around the proof threshold. So today, what McKinsey have been seeing is CEOs are asking or judging marketing, not just based on revenue, but also marketing contribution. However, it's been sort of observed that many CMOs aren't including margin contribution in their top-line metrics. So there's a bit of a disparity, and that's putting a lot more board pressure on a CMO. And in practice, what does this feel like? You're being asked, what are you doing to show revenue? What are you doing to show margin? And what are you going to stop? Again, it's ongoing board pressure. And I think what's making this really difficult to help you understand how to move forwards is the fact that a lot of the foundations that you're sitting on a little bit shaky. So you've got platform sprawl. A lot of tools and systems all over the place. It's hard to also tell what's explicitly driving value versus what isn't. And to top that off, you've got specialist knowledge walking out the door as the talent rotates. And that's just compounding the challenges. So we see these 4 challenges as key to address. And actually on the platform and tooling point, many organizations have already consolidated and invested in some big, hefty platforms. And it's much like buying a new Ferrari, but still driving it like a Fiesta. And please forgive me if you own a Fiesta. But essentially, there's a big kind of gap to bridge from multi-million-pound investment in these platforms to actually seeing the realization of value. And what we're seeing is there's 5 areas that effectively make up this orchestration gap that we see CMOs focusing on. And the first is the operating model, how work gets done throughout your operation. The second is integration. Are your systems and platforms really talking to each other in the right way? And are your workflows actually delivering the automation and the decision execution in the right way consistently? And like any change in any organization, it boils down to people. Are your tools and systems and processes that you're implementing, are they really being adopted? And then the fifth is how you're measuring what you're changing. And having the right KPIs at executive level is essential. And whether you believe the metric or not, what we see is approximately 60% of MarTech initiatives not just fail, but fail to deliver the expected benefits set out in business cases. It's really not about whether the technology can do what you need it to do, okay? That is proven, the technology can. The technology capabilities are much more mature these days, so it's really about the orchestration. So left with 3 sort of key questions that keep coming up in conversations that we're having with CMOs is, do you have the right capability? And can that capability keep up with the speed at which AI and technology is accelerating? How do you make the most of what you've got? How do you avoid having to buy your way out of the problem? I think the point has been proven that more investment in more complexity in technology is not going to help. And therefore, the question ends up being what to do next, what to do first, in what sequence. And that's where our Clarity Framework comes into place. It gives you clarity on what your next move is, but in a defensible, provable way. Our view is there are 4 major pillars that come together. And what we're seeing is many successful CMOs are focusing on these pillars in the right way. But they're all held together by a spine, if you like, of measurement, because moving at speed without the right measurement is quite frankly dangerous. Dangerous in terms of not seeing the return on investment you're expecting to see. So we emphasize that having the right measurement framework in place is essential. The other is traceability. Without the right traceability across these 4 pillars, you're back to not really understanding what you're doing, where you're adding value with the initiatives that you're delivering and sponsoring. So traceability is really key for provability. And let me just take you through our view on these 4 pillars. So first of all, the operating model, or what we like to call the next generation operating model. And why is that next generation? So my perspective is that the speed at which technology and AI is changing is putting a lot of pressure on organizations to be continually adapting the operating model. That's a massive challenge. The AI-human sort of task boundaries are shifting each time you're delivering something new into your operating model, a new capability, new data, etc. And that's really a big problem to solve today, and that's what's making a lot of this feel quite different. There's a massive pressure on organizations today to be in the race to win, and everyone knows behind that race, behind you in that race are competitors that may be doing this better and faster, and that pressure is significant. We always know that the CIO, CMO lines have always been blurred to a degree, but they're becoming more blurred as the pace of change increases. And things fall between the cracks, like change management. And that's leading to erosion of value when the rubber hits the road with the projects that you're implementing. And the measurement framework's really key here. So coming back to the point around measurement, decision velocity, human agentic mix, and change adoption rate are three top-line metrics that we see are very powerful. Moving on to the next, data orchestration. I mean, this is really about, are your systems really talking to each other in the right way? And it's the foundation you're building everything on. And this needs to be robust. Some of the challenges we see in organizations, yes, the typical data in silos, we've got lots of legacy data, but the way organizations are approaching fixing this problem sometimes doesn't help CMOs, because the central management of data, you end up with a one-size-fits-all modeling of the data that then leads you to then, on top of that, transforming it again and then add a layer of maintenance. And again, that erodes value. In addition to that, what we see is an ongoing increase in the amount of shadow data being everywhere, whether it's from shared drives, spreadsheets, mobile phones, etc., whatever device. And that's presenting, on top of this race that you're in, an additional risk around regulatory fines and poor customer experience. And again, the orchestration metrics here I picked out for today are usability, consumption, and quality. And quality doesn't have to be perfect, but also it can't be bad. It needs to be great, but not perfect. And these metrics really help you guide your focus. The next pillar, AI workflows. Everyone's talking about this today. And again, this is the decision-making and execution. It's less about curiosity and capability. It's now about capability. No more experimentation. Boards are setting a high bar. There's a lot of pressure to start adopting agentic AI, but to deliver outcomes, not just to augment teams with co-pilots and tools and so on. And so therefore, what we see is AI can really help marketing. It can really reduce the amount of time spent on setup and increase more time so your resources can spend time making decisions that impact revenue and impact margin contribution. And again, one of the challenges that I see with agentic AI is, again, comes back to the data orchestration. The AI agent might have the right brief, but unless it's got up-to-date information around the account context, you could be causing more problems than you're solving. For example, an AI agent supporting a customer in the customer journey, but you're not aware that actually you're in the middle of a renewal or there's a massive customer escalation going on. And again, this comes down to the data orchestration on top of this. So what I'd measure here is your model accuracy rate, your AI attribution contribution, and again, the adoption of these capabilities within your business. And finally, the fourth pillar. I mean, this is where all these elements come together to help you scale your operation, bringing content to market in a repeatable, scalable way that's safe. And our smart content supply chain solutions always look at how we can automate, remove bottlenecks, and decrease the cycle publish time. And I think if I reflect on my time in industry, where I've worked closely with marketing teams in a transformation role, as an example, without the maturity of your content supply chain, you're still going to be hit by fire drill requests. And what we see a lot today is politicians tweeting, it might be Trump, a war starting, inflation, interest rates. These are things that you marketeers are going to have to still respond to, and having the right maturity around content supply chain means that it's not a fire drill. You can just do it repeatably with the right level of quality each time. The other thing we see, and this is measured by content reuse rate, is there's a massive proportion of content and assets that just don't get used, and they're sitting on the shelf, and that's waste. So you have to avoid it. So again, brief to publish cycle time, content reuse, and revenue by content, coming back to those measurable business metrics. So Why these 4? So our point of view on this is more about a system. It's not about one capability or one pillar on its own. They live together. They impact each other. Focusing on one isn't enough. If you remove the focus on one area, you're going to erode value. So what we see, the first pillar being obviously the operating model, that's your governance layer. The data orchestration is your foundation. The engine on top of this are your AI workflows, and what you're outputting in your campaigns into the marketplace is your content supply chain pillar. Each of these coexists with the other, impacting each other. And they translate in what the board really cares about, and that's revenue growth, cost efficiency, and reducing risk. So it's really important to have a sort of structured point of view on where you're going to spend your time, where you're going to put the effort to the activities and the work that produces the most value in this context. So how can we help, and what are we doing with our clients? So with this framework in mind around the pillars and the measurement and the traceability, we move pretty quickly, pretty damn quick, to get you to a point in 5 weeks where our promise is to tell you what your next initiative needs to be. What's your next move that is defensible and proves value? Our approach is to use our senior consultants that work in a very dynamic way to get you to a point where you can prove the value that you can deliver in a defensible business case. We're very outcome focused, so we don't just deliver you a set of deliverables. We will give you outcomes that you can rely on. And our approach in our framework is, it's based on really not crashing your agendas, your diaries. So we're really sensitive to the fact that everyone's busy, your team's busy. So we take an approach using our most senior consultants from our strategy practice to really do a load of upfront groundwork. So we almost over-prepare. And then the next thing we'll look at is setting you out of that preparation with the right set of offline questions before we hit you with some live time. Okay? Our interviews based on this groundwork and the offline questions means we'll move pretty damn quick in a dynamic way so that the time you're spending with us in a live environment is really, really minimized. And finally, yes, we use AI ourselves. We adopt AI to accelerate the synthesis of the information, but also to improve the quality as well as reducing that time. So that's why we can do it in 5 weeks without impacting you. And we like to deliver more than an insight report, conscious that given the speed requirement, you're going to need something to take forward quickly. So we can give you a solid value case, a business case. We can give you a view of what the target state looks like with the complications or the implications. And also we can give you a view of what it's going to take in terms of time and resources. So at the end of the engagement, you get something pretty solid that you can take forward, and it's defensible. So that's where I'm going to pause. And we'll be happy to take questions from you. I have Lee here to support as well.